Hello everyone, Happy New Year. I have returned from quite a long hiatus. I wanted to come back a bit sooner, but I just wasn't able to for various reasons, but I'm back now. And yeah, I'll be, doing stuff regularly again like I was before. If you have any requests for stuff you'd like me to cover in these, just let me know and I'll be happy to do so. The first thing I'm going to get into is envelopes. We're going to have a look at different ways of using envelopes. I made a video for Surge and Vital just before I left. Those did quite well. A lot of people seen them and enjoyed them. But a lot of people were asking if I could be more sort of show them how to use different parts of the synth. Like they kind of got that an envelope was for volume or you could attach it to a filter, but what else might you attach it to? So yeah, I said I'd cover a few ways that you can use these things, give people a couple of ideas of ways that you might be able to use them, and hopefully that'll inspire you to kind of try things out yourself and see what you can come up with. So an envelope, just for anybody who's not aware of exactly what it does, I'll briefly cover it, but if you want more detail on all this stuff, watch my Vital video or my Surge video. I go into detail on sort of all the different parts of an envelope and all that. Basically, you've got a couple of sections here. You've got a delay. We're not going to talk too much about this because it's kind of, it's not in a lot of envelopes, but basically what this does is it makes the envelope not take effect on anything for a certain period of time, and then the actual envelope will start. We're going to leave that behind for a second. Probably won't do too much with that today. Then you've got your attack phase. Just for a start, most of the time when you pull up an envelope, it's going to be in a synthesizer. It's going to be attached to the volume of the oscillators. And that is the case here in Vital as well. So if I pull up the attack, basically attack is saying, I'm going to start at 0. How long until I get to the maximum value? And then if you set it to be really long, it's going to take a really long time for your oscillator to go from 0 to the set volume level. And then if I make it a bit quicker, we're getting to maximum volume a lot quicker. Then we've got hold and decay. I'm going to leave those for a second until we explain what sustain is, just for anybody who doesn't know. Sustain is basically, once I've got to that maximum level, what level would you like me to go back down to? So if we set this to 50%, we're going to go up to our maximum volume. Then we're going to come down to around 50% here. It's not really 50%, but we're going to come down to whatever level I've set. Decay is how long that takes. So once I've got to the maximum volume here, how long until I go to the sustain level? We can have that be really short. And if we pull back the decay and we set the the attack to 0, so we're starting right away, and we set the sustain to 0, we can have sort of really plucky sounds that are almost not even a pitch if we have really short decays. So that's what decay does. And then hold is basically saying, once I get to this maximum volume here, I'm going to stay at maximum volume for a certain period of time, however long I set here. Then I'm going to start along this decay path to my sustain, which is currently set at 0. That's basically what an envelope is. We have one more thing here, and that's release. So let's pull back some of these. Release is basically saying, once I let go of the key, how long until I go back to 0? So if I let go of the key and my sustain is set to, say, here, let's set a really long release here. So I let go of the key and it's still going, and the longer that is, the longer until the value takes to get to 0. And if it's really short, it's going to be almost instantaneous. And in a lot of synths, if you set your release to 0 and it's attached to volume, you're going to get a clicking sound because it's just turning off the volume too quickly. So that is what an envelope is. Now let's have a look at a couple of things that you might use it for. Just set an init patch here, just because we're not going to mess around with the volume too much. I will say though, don't underestimate the use of volume. A very important part of the characteristics of most instruments is their volume curve. It's one of the main things that helps you distinguish between sounds, is sort of the way that it onsets and decays over time. So never underestimate the use of volume, but we're going to have a look at a couple of other things that you can do. So another really common thing to attach an envelope to is pitch. You might use this just to create sort of a pitchy attack at the start of a note. So if I attach envelope 2 here to the pitch, and then I set my sustain to 0 and I set my decay really short, We can make a zappy sound, and if I make that really short, you can see we almost create sort of a percussive element to the start of the sound. Keyboard is not the best angle here, but you can hear we've got a percussive sound. That can be really good for some, first of all, for making percussion, like drums. By the way, if you'd like me to make an entire video on how to make drums with synthesis, please let me know, because it is quite an interesting thing to be able to do, and it can be really fun to mix in with samples that you're using. But you can use this to make drums, even for just regular sounds. If you've got a lead sound that you really like and it's just not punching through enough, adding a little pitch envelope at the start can be a great way to kind of push it out of the mix and give it a bit of an onset and a bit of a sort of aggression at the start. So definitely a cool thing you can do. Also can sound quite cool with chords. Let's set this to be sort of glidey here. So yeah, lots of cool ways that you can use that. If you use sort of a longer decay, let me just turn this down a touch. Longer decay, you're going to get sort of zappy sounds. And you can also pitch up. Siren noises, stuff like that. There's lots of cool stuff that you can do with pitch. You can use it subtly, of course, as well with vibrato. We'll cover stuff like that with LFOs, but just to note, one of the more common things you might attach an envelope to is pitch. So something else that you might attach it to, probably the most common thing other than volume you're going to find an envelope attached to, is the filter. So you've got a low pass filter here. Not going to go into too much detail on what a filter is. I've covered that in detail in the other synth thing. But we can create many different types of filter curves here. We could, you know, as I was saying with the decay before, we can make really plucky sounds. If we have a really tight decay, we can have a really plucky sound. We can do that same sort of swelling idea that we had before with our volume. If we have a really kind of long attack. So yeah, you can attach it to the filter. That's a fairly common thing to do as well. And another thing that you may want to do is to experiment with some of the other stuff in the filter. For instance, resonance can be a nice thing to increase over time, even alongside your filtering. So you can see if I take out that resonance, it just has less of there's less kind of change over time with the filter. Still sounds nice, but now if I add in that resonance over time and increase the resonance over time, we get more and more. And this would be especially cool if we add in some room effects like reverb or delay. So let's add in a bit of both here. So yeah, it's worth throwing it on a bunch of different parameters. Let's even just throw it on stuff like the drive here. Let's not drive it so much. And maybe let's move to a different filter as well, just for fun. So let's go to, say, a formant filter here, and then we'll have some other stuff to play around with. So let's attach it here to... Let's attach it to... Yeah, let's attach it here to these formant controls. And let's also have it on the resonance too. And also let's move the filter with it as well. Let's actually use a different one for that, and let's have this one sort of decay instead of attack. So let's have this third filter kind of going in the opposite direction. And what else can we attach that to? Maybe we'll even attach our first filter here to, say, a chorus. So instead of just having the chorus be static, let's maybe take the depth and even the mix all the way down and bring those in over time. Let's bring in the mix to about halfway, and let's really slowly bring the depth all the way up. So now it's going to sort of get more and more detuned as time goes on. And let's maybe mess around with something in the delay as well. Maybe we can turn on our filter here, our cutoff. Maybe that'll work. Let's turn the spread down so it's more of a bandpass. And let's use this to mess with the filter of our actual delay. And let's turn the mix up on the delay as well, because we really want to hear the effect. So you can get a load of weird sounds by not just turning effects on. A lot of people will just turn on an effect and, you know, that's kind of that. The chorus is on or the delay is on, but using an envelope to kind of subtly change it over time or drastically change it over time can make a big difference. For instance, we could even have our phaser here instead of, let's actually just turn off some of that modulation that's on the delay, and I'm going to actually turn off the entire filter on it as well, just so we can hear it well. And let's turn off that chorus, and our phaser here is on it's on its own kind of frequency LFO. So let's turn off the LFO here so that it's just static like this, and this is going to give us another formant idea along with our formant filter here. So instead of having that move by its internal LFO, let's attach it to our envelope that we've created here. I'll slightly change it over time, and maybe we'll attach the other one here to the center frequency here. So now we've got a weird sort of effect going on there. This is just to show you that really with these things, people ask a lot about, you know, what should I attach this to? What should I attach that to? What do I modulate for this? What do I modulate for that? And really an awful lot of it is just sort of informed messing around. So you should really just, you know, open up an effect, you know, put it on a sound, or even come into the synthesizer here. So I've gone for this phase disperse one here. So this is one of the weirder oscillator effects that Vital has, and I'm just going to attach the envelope to that as well. So we're just going to sweep through this while we're doing all that stuff with our filter. Sometimes we might want to use it more subtly, so maybe you might want to add, say, a distortion, and you want it to be really distorted when the filter is open, like that. But when it's not open, you want it, when it's on the lower end, you want the drive to be much lower so that you're hearing the low frequencies a bit cleaner. So it's nice sometimes to just attach an envelope to it and change it even subtly. See, if we turn that modulation off, we just have this constant sort of a drive. Or with this, we have the drive applied sort of all the time as a kind of blanket thing. But sometimes it's nice just to add a little bit of an envelope to change that effect over time. So yeah, really the point is just to tell you that you should mess around with envelopes or LFOs or whatever it is, and just attach them to different stuff. And if you've got an envelope doing something, there's no harm in trying to attach it to something completely unrelated. If you've got it attached to your filter, maybe try and attach that to an effect as well, just to see what it does. Really, a lot of the sounds that you hear that you think are really cool, they're not done with a tremendous amount of pre-deliberation. A lot of the time, the stuff that's really cool is people messing about, and then kind of, as they mess about, narrowing their parameters as time goes on, going, oh, that sounds nice, let me just tone it down a bit. That sounds good, maybe I should hone in on this a bit. Maybe I should bring in another sort of slower envelope to do this job, you know, or maybe it would be cool if I attached that envelope I'm using for the volume to this. It's not a case of for most people, I don't think sitting down and going, okay, well, I'm going to attach that envelope to that and that's going to have this result. A lot of the time the cooler sounds come from just messing around with it and having an ear for when things are kind of too extreme and when they're, you know, working properly. So hopefully that's been helpful, and I've given you a few ideas on how to use envelopes in synthesizers. A lot of people had asked about that. So yeah, I hope you have fun with it. And as always, a big thank you to my patrons who support the channel. I've been gone for a few months. I've had my Patreon on pause. But I will be putting some content up on that shortly. There'll be some extra videos and some Bitwig project files and stuff like that coming throughout the course of January. So thank you very much to everybody who is still on there.